Okay, there you have it. That's, of course, FM Sitharaman. I think she's very soon going to be addressing the media as well. This is the latest coming in with respect to the GST Council meeting. Of course, one of the key things to watch out for when it comes to the GST Council meeting and the outcome is going to be what's going to be the bit with respect to the state compensation, the revenue sharing bit. That's, I think, going to be extremely important among many other things. FM Sitharaman at this point of time is just about making her way to the podium. There will, in all possibility, be differences that may have emerged between the state and the centre over that whole compensation deficit as well. Remember that states like Punjab, states like Kerala have all proposed that the state government should borrow and provide to states, but of course the centre and Bihar as well are asking the states to borrow. So yeah, that's largely all of the issues surrounding this 41st GST Council meeting. And you can see FM Sitharaman and you can see various other members. I think on the finance minister's left is also Mr. Anurag Thakur is, I think, who I can see. Okay, let's cut across to the finance minister.
Has been very, very severely impacted. And as per the GST compensation law, certain compensations are required to be given to the states. And the GST compensation law also provides that how that compensation has to be paid. So there were certain legal issues. So we went to the Attorney General because Honorable Finance Minister in the GST Council meeting held in the month of March itself, she had mentioned that the GST compensation issues and other issues, how to meet this shortfall and what are the legal angles and how, what are the various options. So in that March meeting, the Finance Minister had mentioned that the proposals and then all other aspects will be examined. The legal view will be taken. So we had gone to the Attorney General, and then the Attorney General has broadly given this opinion, saying that the compensation has to be paid for the transition period, that is from July 2017 to June 2022, for the period of 5 years. The protected revenue, that is the growth of 14%, that has to be protected. But this compensation gap has to be met from the Cess fund, and then the Cess fund has to be funded from the levy of the Cess. So the question arose that this shortfall, how that shortfall has to be met. Can that be met from the Consolidated Fund of India? So the AG's clear opinion was that this can't be met from the Consolidated Fund of India. So therefore the question was how to meet that gap. So one of the options which the Attorney General had suggested, that this compensation cess levy can be extended beyond 5 years to meet the shortfall which has occurred during this transition period, that is the 5-year period starting from 2017 to 2022. So we presented all these facts before the GST Council, and in the GST Council the discussion has taken place, and the certain options also were discussed. The option was that there were two options which was presented before the GST Council after the discussion. And first option was that the GST, this revenue, this compensation gap which has arisen this year, which is expected to go somewhere around 3 lakh crores in this year. Out of that, we expect that the compensation cess collection will be somewhere around 65,000 crores. So the gap will be, the shortfall will be 2,35,000 crores. But this 2,35,000 crore is not entirely on account of the implementation of GST. This is also on account of the COVID pandemic situation. So we had we had worked out the impact due to COVID, and once we segregated that out, so then the total amount of this gap, the shortfall on account of implementation of GST was worked out somewhere around about 97,000 crores. So one option was that this 97,000 crores, a special window could be provided in consultation with the RBI, so that the states can be given this money and the states can get this money and at the reasonable rate of interest, and this amount can be repaid after 5 years through the collection of cess. So that was the option number one. Then another option was also discussed. That option was that this entire gap of 2,35,000 crore of this year can be met by the borrowing by the states. Again, there also the arrangement could be made with the RBI and certain facility could be provided. So that also could be provided. So these are the two options which were discussed. So what the states have requested, that they want a 7 days time to think over this proposal, and then they can come back to us, and so that the further action could be taken. Now these options, it was also discussed that this option would be available only for the current year, and this will be reviewed in the beginning of the next year, because by the next year the situation would have changed. The economy, would have grown and would be in a different position. So at that time we will take a review that what would be the best solution in the interest of the country, interest of the states, and also the union. What exactly the formula that could be worked out for the next year. So, Madam, with this, we invite that any questions from the media or the clarification, and which Honorable Finance Minister would be very, very happy to answer.
So, taking the question now, I invite Jyota De from PTI. Jyota, is she there?
Madam, audible, sir?
Yes, Jyota.
Yeah. Good evening. Ma'am, the West Bengal Finance Minister letter yesterday suggested that the center pays compensation for the other cess that the center takes, which is not divided to the state. Is there a thing that proposal can be discussed further?
Jyota, your voice is inaudible. We could not. Can you repeat your question, please?
Am I audible, sir?
Now it is clear, much clear.
Good evening, ma'am. Yeah, West Bengal Finance Minister yesterday in his letter has suggested that the center should look at devolving the cess collected from other cess apart from the GST cess that the center doesn't devolve to the states to meet this compensation shortfall. So, what was there any discussion around that?
Can I please ask all others to mute their mic? I couldn't get what question was being asked. Can all others kindly mute their mic, please? Can you please ask the question now again? I still hear some noise. Can please mics be muted?
Jyota, please ask question again.
Hi, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, West Bengal
Yes.
Finance Minister yesterday suggested in his letter to you that the center should look at devolving the cess that the center collects from other like petroleum products to the states to meet the revenue shortfall. So, was there any discussion surrounding that also, ma'am?
That wasn't even raised today.
May I invite Ajay Mishra from Doordarshan to ask the next question? Ajay Mishra.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, please mute your mics, except the person who is asking the question.
Ajay, rest of people, please mute your mic, accept the question being asked by Ajay Mishra now. Ajay.
Thank you very much, sir. May I ask, will with the arrangement of compensation, if state governments come to you and ask that money can, is the option of going to open market totally ruled out? The money will come from the RBI at a specific interest rate to the states if they agree for going this way, ma'am.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Ajay, can you repeat briefly again the question?
Not that you should repeat, the others should mute their mics. I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear anyone properly. This is not good.
Friends, please mute your mics. We are not able to listen to the question clearly. Request you again.
वित्त मंत्री जी, मैं ये समझना चाह रहा हूँ कि अगर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स आपके पास आती हैं इस प्रपोजल के साथ में कि जो पूरा का पूरा गैप है 2,35,000 करोड़ रुपए का, वो इसी साल के लिए उनकी व्यवस्था की जाए, तो वो पूरी व्यवस्था किस तरह चले? अगर प्रपोजल के लिए करके आती हैं पूरा 2,35,000 करोड़ रुपए है,
आप एक काम करिए अजय जी, आप अपना वीडियो ऑफ कर दीजिए। आपके वहां पे नेटवर्क की प्रॉब्लम लगती है। कम से कम आपका प्रश्न ढंग से आ जाए तो आप अपना वीडियो ऑफ करके पूछिए।
जी,
वीडियो ऑफ कर दीजिए और बाकी लोग वीडियो ऑफ कर दीजिए प्लीज। बाकी लोग कृपया करके सब लोग अपना ऑडियो ऑफ कर दीजिए। सिर्फ अजय मिश्रा प्रश्न पूछें, वो अपना ऑडियो ऑन करके पूछ लें। जी अजय जी पूछिए।
धन्यवाद राज्य मंत्री जी। मैं ये समझना चाह रहा हूँ कि अगर जो राज्य हैं वो इस बात के लिए राजी होते हैं कि जो पूरा का पूरा गैप है 2,35,000 करोड़ रुपए का, उसको इस साल के लिए उनको मुहैया कराया जाए, वो किन शर्तों पर मुहैया कराया जाएगा, क्या उस पर कुछ चर्चा हुई है? वो थोड़ी सी जो उसका विस्तार है वो हम जानना चाह रहे हैं।
See, yes, the two options were discussed in detail. Although the meeting concluded after 5 hours, we started at 11:10, we finished at about 4:10. After in detail talking about the expectations and so on, when the options were placed before the states heard them. We very clearly said in both the options, for reasons which we mentioned during the meeting, that we shall facilitate talking to the Reserve Bank and getting it at a GSEC proportionate number of years linked rate for all the states, so that each state doesn't have to go running for the loan and face different situations, and in the process the bond yields or the loans are given at a higher rate of interest, meaning the yields should not be too hardened. So we said we'll facilitate it, but the borrowing can be done in the name of the states, and all states roughly can get the same rate of interest and so on. So the states have asked us to put both the options in some kind of a detailed note and share it with them today or tomorrow, and give them 7 full working days, after which they will come back to say how they want to go ahead. It may mean that we have a very brief GST meeting again of the council, or with the responses coming from the states, we'll take a call. So the detailing will be done and sent to the states of both the options, where we will facilitate by talking with the Reserve Bank and ensuring that they get the bi-monthly compensation. This year it's already 2 bi-monthlies are delayed, but as soon as this arrangement is agreed upon by the council, we can proceed fast and clear these dues and also take care of the rest of this financial year. And whether it is this option or that option, we have very clearly said we want this to be only for this year, and early April 2021, the council should again look at this situation and then take a call for the 5th year in the transition 5 years. So this will be sent to the states will look at it, and then after 7 full working days, they'll come back to us.
Next question by Shashir Sinha, please.
Ma'am, namaskar. Shishir here from Hindu Business Line. I hope my voice is clear, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, I have 2 questions. One is about that will center stands guarantee in both the option A and option B? And my second question is, what is the amount of the 2 bi-monthly dues which are pending now?
See, when we are trying to facilitate, and it is based on the GST Council's decision, and it is going to get tied up to the cess collection after the 5th year. So there is all these kind of instrumentalities through which the Reserve Bank or the lender will be assured. And what the bi-monthly figure, I'll ask the Revenue Secretary to give you the exact figure.
During the last 4 months, the April, May, June, July, the total compensation which becomes, as per the formula given in the Act, is about 1,50,000 crores. And why it is so? Because in the month of April, May, there was hardly any GST collection. And therefore, the protected revenue, of course, at the rate of 14%, compounded for the last 3 years. And so that is why this gap is 1,50,000 crores. The total the annual this compensation requirement, what we have estimated, based on the recovery that is we are seeing, in the month of July and August, we are expecting this compensation gap to be around 3 lakhs crores, and out of that, the compensation cess collection would be somewhere around 65,000 crores. So we are left with this gap of this annual gap of 2,35,000 crores, which I mentioned for the 4 month itself is about 1,50,000 crores.
Next question by Siddharth, Times of India.
Ma'am, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ma'am, what is the incentive for states to settle for a lower borrowing instead of 2.35 lakh crores? Why would they settle for a 97,000 crore when they are short of revenue themselves? Number one. And number two, if the projections that you have made of 2.35 lakh crore shortfall the final outcome is higher than what the 2.35 lakh crore is, will the center and the states again go back to RBI for further assistance? Thank you.
Siddharth, the first option is designed because it is designed the way in which it has been designed. In the sense, first option has 2 components. First option has 2 legs. One leg is where we are saying we'll facilitate through the Reserve Bank so that states, all of them, will not have to go running and different rates in the market and all that. For that portion, which is 96,484 or some amount, which is strictly arising out of the implementation of the GST. Now, you would ask me, how did you arrive at that? Because all of you all know the projected in revenue generation trajectory, and at 10% growth, the trajectory of what should have been collected. Now, below that would be the actual collection, which probably is influenced by the COVID. And technically, and I'm not saying I'm in favor of this or that, I'm only describing it for your convenience. So that portion of the gap which arises in the compensation essentially deriving from the calculation methodology which is already embedded in the Act. Because the Act didn't foresee an act of God. It just kept saying protected revenue should be taken care of. And it also said approximately at 10% growth, what is the actual revenue? And therefore it made sure that it hardwired giving compensation. Whereas this year we are facing an extraordinary situation that even below the 10% approximate estimation, you're facing an act of God, which might even result in a contraction of the economy. To what percent or whatever, I'm not getting into that. And therefore we said that portion which strictly is hardwired in the Act, we'll arrange, give it to you and take it. Now that that question you asked, saying why should the states be tempted to take that? There are some states which say, look, I may not want to go to the market to borrow that much. So for me, eventually, after all, this is going to be paid by the cess collection after the 5th year. But even then, for me, I don't need to borrow this much. Whereas my compensation, which is expected, I have made a provision for that compensation which should come to me, which is the hardwired compensation, which is built into the Act. I will certainly plan my state based on that receipt of that amount. But nobody would have ever thought of COVID. So some states might have thought, if this comes to me, that's fine. But the other one, I may not want to go that far to borrow the rest. I may manage, I may borrow less, I may have a choice. So that option was decided and tailor-made, thinking that states can take a call of what they expect out of compensation to come because it is hardwired in the Act itself, they will have to be given. But the rest, which is because of COVID, state, each one of them can take a call on how they want to handle it. And for that too, I offered that in the FRBM, I will give a further relaxation of 0.5%. You may immediately ask me, during the Atmanirbhar, you gave 0.5 unconditionally over the 3 which existed earlier, after which I gave 0.25, 0.25, 0.25 and 0.25. 0.25 pegged to performances, subject to completing those. And in the last gave 0.5, if at least 3 of the performance related, ration card for all, one card, one nation, and also making sure that the local body reforms and all that. Of the 4, if they completed 3, I said I will give another 0.5. Now, without that condition, I'm willing to give that 0.5, which was otherwise tied to the performance of 3. I will give that 0.5 as the second leg of the option 1, where a state can choose whether they want to go and borrow beyond what is expected from the compensation itself, because that is the injury caused by COVID. Some states may want full, some may not want full. So that's my option 1. And the reason for the temptation, why should they settle for that, is this nuance.
Next question by Timothy Japuria. Timothy?
You have something to add?
Yeah, I would just like to add to Siddharth that let's say a state goes for option number 1. Then what will happen is that it will borrow less, but then his compensation entitlement, which has be there for the next, which accrues during the this year and which accrues during the this year and then the next year and then the 2020, 21, 22, 23 till the month of June, that entitlement will be protected. So he will get the money after 2022. So whatever he has not borrowed, that money, that compensation says anyway he is going to get. So it is left to the choice of the state that are they going to borrow less and get the compensation later, or they can borrow more here but borrow more, and then to that extent the borrowing will be paid by the compensation cess which gets collected after the transition period.
In both the options, Siddharth, in both the options, there shall not be a burden on the state, but it will be paid by the compensation cess which will be collected.
Next question by Tim C.
Ma'am, I have a question that considering that you have estimated that 2.35 lakh crores is what is a expected amount to be borrowed to compensate for this year, in how much of a timeline do you think this can be repaid? Because as you said, in both the cases, the repayment will be done by extending the number of years of the compensation cess window. So by how much do you think at least the first year gap, that is this fiscal's gap, can be repaid? And what is the expected average monthly collections that you expect for this year that is likely to come?
Well, Timsy, I think we'll be too much on a speculative ground, because after all, I can't predict what the council will want to do in terms of the cess itself. Will they want to increase the cess rates? Will this council later on say what cess prevails on the 28% items is not sufficient, we want to increase it? Or will they say not only on sin goods but on some others also we want to bring in? So we don't know. So I will not want to say this itself will take another 3 years, this itself will take another 4 years and so on, provided after the states come back, which is after 7 working days, we'll be able to get some contours fixed for the options that we have given. Once the contours that are fixed for the options that we are giving, we may be able to answer your question.
And
So only
madam, with your permission, Timsy, what you are asking the question is that what will be the collection and the scenario in the after 5 years, that is from the year 2023, 2024, 2025.
No, she's asking about this year.
No.
You are saying
I'm asking for this
how many
fiscal,
years?
sir. No, I'm asking average monthly collections for this fiscal. And as ma'am rightly said, I'm asking what will be the repayment mechanism, to which she said that only after the proposal
7
is
days.
fructified. So that means there's an option open, not just to extend the number of years, but also could be to hike the rates under the cess and include more items under the cess?
Today, there has not been even one discussion, not even a minute's discussion on rate increases. There has not been a minute's discussion on will we consider it, none of that. Because every time we spoke about how to make sure that the compensation, and deliberately, in fact, I deliberately said that I do not want to talk about rate increases now, because one minister, I think it was Dr. Amit Mitra, also Assam minister, who said this may not be the appropriate time to be talking about that. And that line got repeated. But we didn't speak about it, or no one did mention saying let's talk about it, and somebody else said no, we won't talk about it. None of that. In passing, it happened that we agreed, and no one disagreed, that we agreed that this may not be the time for us to talk about rate increases.
Next question by Gulveen from Economic Times. Please ask your question, Gulveen.
Good evening, ma'am.
Your voice is, we are not able to hear you, Gulveen. No.
You can switch off your video and can use the audio mic.
Am I audible now?
Not really.
Not clearly.
Am I audible now, sir?
Yes, Gulveen.
All right. Just wanted to get a clarity on the repayment mechanism that that is being proposed, and where will whether the interest part of it will also be covered, and how will that be sorted out with the RBI? And secondly, ma'am, when as the option has been left to the states, will both the options be open for states to take? If, say, some states decide to go for the first one and some states decide to go for the second one?
You see, so far as the repayment of this loan is concerned, in both the options, it will be made through the cess collected in the 6th year, 7th year, or whatever time it takes to repay the entire loan. And of course, the interest also will be paid through the cess mechanism. In no case the states will be burdened, in the sense that their own other source of revenue will be burdened for repayment of loan.
Next question by Rajiv Jaiswal from Hindustan Times. Rajiv. Rajiv, are you there? Ramya Nair. Ramya.
Good evening, ma'am. I just had a query on IGST. What was apportioned back to the Consolidated Fund of India in the previous year? Is there any more amount of that left that can be again transferred back into the compensation fund? Because the Punjab FM had talked about a figure of rupees 88,000 crores that still remains to be transferred back.
What? 88,000?
We are not able to get your question, because there is nothing which remains to be transferred back to the compensation cess fund, because the whatever amount that was collected as compensation cess since July 1st, 2017, the entire amount has been paid. And I will just like, for your information, the last year, in the year 1920, the total collection of cess was only 95,000 crores, whereas the compensation that got paid to the states was 1,65,000 crores. So
right, sir. He was mentioning IGST, sir. IGST.
Let me come to that. So this 70,000 crores actually was paid from the compensation cess, which got collected in the previous 2 years, and because of a lesser compensation requirement, that money remained in the compensation cess fund, and that is what it has been used to repay the states. Now, so far the IGST issue is concerned, the IGST, part of this IGST money that has also been adjusted, and for the remaining amount, the amount which was because of the lack of clarity of the law particularly in the first year, this IGST amount which was collected was taken to the Consolidated Fund of India. Now, in order to reverse this transaction, a committee under the chairmanship of Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, Sushil Modi, was constituted. The meetings have been held, and then based on their recommendation, the adjustments will have to be made. And in that, certain adjustment, in the sense that some amounts will have to be paid to the states, some amounts will have to be transferred from the states. So all those adjustments will have to be made, and that mechanism is being worked out by that committee.
Next by Ruchi Bhatia. Ruchi.
Hi, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Your sound is not clear. Please, now you try again.
Malhotra sir, is my audio? Yeah.
Video.
Okay.
No, please disconnect your video and only ask the question.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is my audio better?
Yes.
Is my audio better? Ma'am, my question to you, besides the issue of compensation, 2 days ago at an industry body conference, you did say that the GST on two-wheelers can be considered, given the fact that it is neither a luxury good nor a sin good. The automakers cheered that move. However, various auto dealers believe that if this move does not happen before the festive season, it may dampen the demand even further and people may push their buys for two-wheelers. I want to understand from you, while yes, compensation issue was discussed today, how soon can we expect any sort of a movement on rates, especially for items that are not under either the sin good category or the luxury good category?
This how soon type of questions worry me. Ruchi?
Yes, ma'am. I can't hear you.
Hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Better now.
How soon type of questions worry me. That's not my realm at all. It is the entire prerogative of the GST Council to say they should want to do it soon, or they want to do it later, or they want to postpone it. I have only responded to a suggestion from one of the members of the CII that two-wheelers, because won't come under the sin goods, may merit going to the council for a consideration. Whether you wish it for sooner or later, I can't even comment.
Can the fiscal panel look into this over the next, few months, given the fact that this may lead to a demand push, ma'am?
Next question.
Next, Greesh Prasad from Mint.
Hi, sir. Hello, ma'am. Hi. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Ma'am, I would like to know two things. One, the reason behind approaching the central bank rather than going to the market. Is it to avoid, crowding out, private borrowers, or is any, monetization of debt, part of your thinking? And secondly, is the central government giving, standing as a guarantor for this loans to be raised by states, sir?
Girish, when states compensation are due and center together with the GST Council will have to pay them.
Right, ma'am.
And the matter of fact is that there is a gap in the collection, and every such payment will have to be made by the Cess collection.
Right, ma'am.
The question that it is getting paid by a Cess collection being collected by the sovereign authority, which is center and states put together,
right, ma'am,
by an act of parliament. So that part of the question is very clear, and the answer is inbuilt in your question itself. But on the question of why are we going to the central bank is because if each of the state will rush to the market, and even we've announced a borrowing calendar, it will end up heating up the bond yields. So we thought it will make a sense because it's anyway getting tied up to the collection. The returns are sure because it's based on the tax collection. It's only right for us to ask if the Reserve Bank would, in this situation, help us, like the way they do many other things. Like, I'm not comparing. In order to bring in liquidity, instead of heating up the bond yields, we could talk to them and say for all the states, varying amounts, each according to their compensation due. Through the Reserve Bank, if something happens, there will be one rate which can help all the states, rather than that which rushes first gets better yield, the one goes later gets higher, and so on. So we wanted to facilitate the process.
Right, ma'am. Thank you.
Next question by Anchal from Indian Express. Anchal?
Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Ma'am, one of my question is, was there any discussion on the option of central government borrowing rather than states borrowing, as many states had mentioned before the meeting? And also, if you could again clarify on the interest payment, who is exactly going to pay for it? And what if the revenue shortfall is greater than 97,000 crore? What happens in that case?
That the center should borrow was all the initial remarks made by some of the states. Then the presentation happened about what actually is the deficit and so on. Then I gave the two options, and both my options were hinged on the fact that the borrowing will be by the states. We explained as to why it would be preferable for the states to borrow and not the center. And also we said, if states are going to borrow, instead of a clamor into the market,